Welcome to Introduction to Marketing. This is lesson 4. In this lesson, we are looking at marketing psychology. Marketing psychology. So why is understanding the role of psychology in marketing so very important? Well, it's so you can understand. It was the late Stephen Covey in his book The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, where one of the habits was seek first to understand and then to be understood. And Mr. Drucker continued on that realm because he actually said the aim of our marketing is to know and understand the customer so well that the product or the service that we create fits them and sells itself. So this is where this important understanding of knowing exactly, almost like being a student of your target audience, will enable you to put something together that you know they would want. So the first thing that I really want you to understand in this particular lesson is that people at their core do not change. Now let me explain this. Here we are looking at a family, and you can tell by the quality of the photo, the way they are dressed, how they look, their clothing, that this is a family from the past, a considerable way back. However, do not think for a moment that that family we just saw are any different than this family, even though this family live in this modern day. They've probably got access to all the gadgets, most of them will have their own cars. The youngsters will have their own watches and phones and things like that. But you really are making a big mistake if you actually think that they are any different from these people, and we'll explain this in just a moment. Likewise, you look and you see kids here at school just trying to sit still so they can pose for the photo. And if you think that those children from back in the day are any different than these young men and women, I like that youngster at the front there whose head's on the desk, who's actually falling asleep a little bit, there is no difference. Never forget, you're dealing with human beings and a hierarchy of needs that never change. There was a psychologist in America called Abraham Maslow, and he created a hierarchy of needs. And starting from the bottom, moving up, they went with physiological ones, which was food, water, sleep. Safety, so you're feeling like you're comfortable. There's actually warmth there. Love and belonging, as in relationships. Esteem, that's as you begin to sort of make achievements. And then self-actualization. I think a lot of people get to a stage where they think, am I living my calling? So these are all the different needs here that we're talking about. So once again, this young girl who's in an old-fashioned baby pram, right? And this young lady in this modern day are no different, because at the very bottom there, they need food, right? They need water, they need fluids, they need sleep. And you go one step further above there, they also need that comfort and that protection. Now when we look at love and belonging with achieving deeper, more meaningful relationships, here we have a modern couple tying the knot, the happiest day of their life. And here we have, back in the day, the same sort of couple. Absolutely no different. So when we do look at this day and age and we begin to say, well, we're in a digital era and social media and there's internet this, and everybody's attention span is so much shorter than it used to be, we've got to make sure that we combine these marketing definitions that we discussed in a previous teaching with the hierarchy of needs. These are emotions, and it's very, very important that we realize that. So when we were looking at Gary Benzivenga's marketing definition, he said marketing is finding out what people want and showing them how to get it. So we are really looking at our prospects and our clients are moving in one of two ways. They're either moving towards something, they're aspiring to achieve something, or they're moving away from something. They want to avoid something. And the way we're wired, we're so much more liable to take action, to buy, if we can avoid something, if we can put off that feeling of inadequacy, of pain, of rejection. So it's very important to stay aware of these hierarchy of needs: physiological, safety, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. And how do we find out, relative to those needs, where our clients and our prospects are? Well, we ask. And specifically, these are the questions that we ask. Now, let me explain something very quickly here. You won't necessarily sit down with them and just ask these 6 back to back to back, although I've certainly done it and it has worked, and you can do it too. But by the time everything is said and done, you need to understand and have feedback from your customers and from your prospects on the following. So let's say, for example, we looked earlier on about that couple wanting to get married. Okay, we could say, what is your biggest frustration as you are planning your wedding? Right? And 9 times out of 10 they'll say the stress and the overwhelm, so many things to think about. What did you try or look for so far? So now you're beginning to see what have they done in their bid to either move towards something or move away something. What is your biggest fear? What are you afraid will happen if your marriage fails or looking for a venue fails? What would it take for you to be happy about getting married or looking for a venue? If you could have one answer or solution regarding looking for a venue or getting married, what would it be? So this is what we mean. You've just got to begin to understand this, but you must go deeper as well, and I'll explain that in just a moment. Because by getting answers here, you gain something that very, very few marketers use, and that is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence exactly? Well, emotional intelligence is the ability to sense, understand, and then effectively apply the power and knowledge of emotion to a situation. All right? Because if we remember before, Peter Drucker said that the aim of our marketing is to know and understand the customer so well the product or service fits him and sells itself. So therefore, if we were looking at a situation over here and we know and we understand the frustration people are having when they're looking for a wedding venue, we can create marketing that says, are you tired of being stressed out looking? Would you like somebody who can just take all this away from you and help you enjoy the day itself? Because now all of a sudden you have the emotional intelligence, and it will help you greatly. Because, going on to our final thought, the more you know about your prospects and existing clients, the better. Now, back in the day, knowing your prospects and existing clients was, knowing their names, knowing the names of the children, knowing where you grew up and things like that. But we're saying, as we've highlighted, you've got to get a lot deeper and really understand some of these insecurities, some of these fears, some of these things that they're totally trying to move away. Because if you can then begin to really ask, and then ask again, and then ask again, they will slowly but surely reveal more and more about what really is behind their fear or their aspiration. Listen closely to the information you get and go as politely deep as you can when you ask the 6 key questions. So what I mean by politely deep, this is where you sort of say, if you're a personal trainer, for example, and the bride wants to look nice in her dress, and you say, well, what's your fear about not looking nice? And she'll say, well, I might look a bit overweight. And then you say, well, what's so wrong about looking overweight at your wedding? And she'll say, well, I just don't want all my family and friends to see me and my husband. And you might say, well, what's wrong about your husband to be seeing you overweight at the wedding? And then she might say, well, there'll be other pretty women there. Bingo. Now you begin to get some of the information, and some of your marketing could be, do you want to be the prettiest person at your own wedding? So all of a sudden now that puts you in a great position where you can use that information to craft messages in order to, in the words of a very, very able ad and marketing man, Robert Collier, where he said, always enter the conversation already taking place in the customer's mind. So that is our lesson on marketing psychology. Coming up next in lesson 5, we discuss the so crucial importance of a marketing triangle.